Welcome to Muscular Minds Podcast, where we want to build mental toughness and resilience for you, your family, your faith, and your future. Thanks for joining us today.
All right. Welcome into Muscular Minds. Today, we're going to really do our high intensity workout for our mind. I'm in a back to school mode as we get ready for school to start. And we really want to talk about parenting. We have all our audio podcasts that really address parenting too. If you want to check those out, we're going to touch on it in a really kind of condensed version today. That's going to really, I think, be helpful to you, because parenting is probably more challenging than it ever before as far as what you have to juggle, what you have to be mindful of. And that is something that I think is really hard on parents, because in 2025, let's be honest, you're dealing with screen time, phones, digital devices, social media. And a lot of times, many of our families are stretched super thin. And it's different too, because sometimes we are working two jobs, or maybe we're a single parent, or perhaps we've just really been dealt a situation where we have to raise kids that maybe aren't even ours. It's our nephews, our nieces, our grandkids. And so there's a lot of things that we're trying to catch up on. And it's not just business as usual raising kids. There's a lot you have to pay attention to. There's a lot you have to know. So let's get into it today and really talk about how do we help our kids as they get into this new school year, where they are anxious about the new classes they're going to be in, whether they're going to be able to make friends, are they going to have a nice teacher? And we really want to talk about some of the things that are going on with kids at school. Let me start. Like, there is a lot that you hear about, whether it's physical bullying at school, verbal bullying, social media bullying, cyberbullying. It's a real thing. So I think the easiest way to think about, try to help our kids through some of this, is to think about your own experience. And so I want to address, when I was in fifth grade, probably like you have been bullied at some point when you were growing up in your childhood. This particular situation I want to tell you about is when I witnessed somebody else get bullied. Now, in 2025, a lot of times there's fights and going on, and kids will be streaming that and talking about and posting that. And that's a whole nother discussion. And we should be uncomfortable with that in 2025. But one of the things that I remember is when fights would break out when I was younger, you were supposed to help break them up. It was something that you did. In this situation that I'm in, we're all lining up for class to head out to music. So we're all getting in order. My class, the teacher was the first one out, and I was at the end of the line bringing up the back of the class. And I had a best friend, and he was kind of right in front of me. But there was another kid in the class who was the kind of the classroom bully, and he was always picking at my friend, kind of pushing him when nobody was looking and whatnot. We're headed out to class to go to music, and he blocks the doorway right when me and my friend get to the door, and then he closes the door, and he begins to push and hit my friend. And I freeze. I don't know what to do, because I haven't been in that situation before. And I remember looking back, just wondering how to help my friend. And I feel like a lot of times when we are growing up, there's so many choices and challenges that come up every day. And sometimes we freeze, whether it's we're getting bullied, our friends are getting bullied, or we don't know the answer to a question, or we don't know how to ask for help from a teacher, or how do I figure out how to get my locker going with a combination, or how do I even turn this device on? It's my new iPad. There's so many things. Where do I sit at lunch? And a lot of times it may be like me, where you or your kid froze or freeze, and we don't know what to do. And I remember after the fight was over, my principal called me to the office, and she asked me why I didn't do more, why I didn't intervene more, because I was bigger than this kid. And she said, you can stick up for him. And it really stuck with me from then on. So when I was in high school and a friend of mine was getting bullied, it was a lot easier for me to stand next to my friend and stand with him to kind of push back against a bully, because I had that experience of doing it wrong with my friend back in fifth grade. So a lot of times we need experience to help us learn how to make a different and a better decision. And so as we get started in thinking about how to help our kids, it's good to go back and think about what happened to you. How did you get it right? Or better yet, how did you get it wrong? What can you help teach your child is they're kind of battling through their own choices every single day. So I think having empathy with our kids, because it's not easy, and then having some empathy for the unique circumstances that they are growing up in 2025. And so I think that's something that we got to pay attention to and be aware of and empathetic to. So number one is just have some understanding with your kid about how difficult it may be for them. I think that's something that's important. And number two, it's good to ask open ended questions. I remember coming home after the incident in fifth grade and feeling really ashamed and guilty. And my mom was simply asking me questions about kind of what happened, what did I do, what I didn't do. And then one question really stuck out to me. What do I want to do different or better for next time? Because she assumed at some point it was going to happen again to me or one of my friends. And so she really wanted me to kind of like think through that. So she asked open-ended questions. Number three, I think natural consequences can be a really good um, life lesson for a lot of us. Sometimes, for example, I'm trying to encourage kids that I work with or their families to really try to figure out ways to motivate kids to get through school, to get their work turned in so that they don't have summer school or they don't have to repeat the grade. And so many times that does happen. Kids don't get their work turned in. Kids don't turn it in on time and they have to redo something like a grade or they have to go to summer school. And undoubtedly what I will hear is, I don't want to do that again. So they apply themselves to the next year. It's because they had a natural consequence that really kind of like zeroed in on them. And so they learned from that. So sometimes the best thing we can do as parents is let some of those natural consequences play out. It's not easy. It's not fun. The tendency is to want to bubble wrap our kids, protect them from those harsh consequences. But the reality is sometimes our kids have to go through some hard things and learn those lessons. So natural consequences can be really powerful sometimes. So that is something I think that we have to let our children absorb. And number four, it's teaching them how to deal with hard things. If you think about hard things that you faced as a child or as an adult, sometimes the only way for you to learn how to deal with a hard thing is to go through a hard thing. And we have to support one another when that happens. And so as parents, we have to support our kids as they're going through those hard things. But problem solving is a really underutilized skill, I think, nowadays in so many people, but especially kids. It's kind of like if one little thing isn't lining up the way it needs to, it kind of goes off the rails. It's because we're lacking some problem solving skills. We can't figure out a way to get through things. We can't figure out a way to go around it or through it. And so we just stop. Kids get stuck. They get frustrated. They escalate or they shut down. And it's because they're stuck. They don't know what to do. They can't problem solve through that situation. So that's a pretty big skill that our kids really need to learn. And I think a big one too is number five is just realizing that our kids need other people around them, good people, good adults, good friends, influences. If you want to think about your village, who do you put around yourself? Who do you put around your kids? Because a lot of times kids don't want to listen to the parent. So my teenagers don't always want to listen to me. And so that means, who am I going to get to help influence my kid who can really deliver the message that I need my kid to hear, but it's through someone else. And a lot of times my kids will come back to me and they will recognize the wisdom that I'm saying because it resonates after someone else also confirms that what mom and dad are saying is really the truth. And we're just looking out for them because we care about them. So thinking about who we put around our kids is really important. And also teaching our kids to be careful about who they put around themselves, the influences that they put, encouraging good friends to be around them, and really challenging them to make good friends that want to do good in school, who want to make good choices and who want to excel. And then challenging them maybe when those things don't line up. And that's when sometimes the natural consequences come in, because maybe those choices and those influences are taking them a direction that they don't need to go. And sometimes we just have to let some of that play out to recognize, hey, let's learn from that bad choice and do different. Let's make some different choices with our friends, or let's make some different choices about who we spend time around, because this isn't working for you. And so these things are really hard conversations to have, but I think it's important. As someone who really was on the edge of Generation X, it is true when you think about all the reels and the TikToks you see about we drank out of the garden hose, we went home at night when the light was on, the street light came on, and that nobody really always knew where we were. That's true. So we did have a lot of unsupervised time, adventures, if you will, just out riding our bikes, doing all kinds of different things. And so, it does teach you some problem solving skills. Maybe you were a little more confident dealing with things. The tendency now is to follow my kid on their Live 360 app. Where are my kids all the times? Who are they with? And some of that is good. It is good to kind of help our kids, but at the same time, I can't micromanage them, control them. I've got to see the choices that my kid makes and kind of guide them and coach them through it. And so these are some things that I think we discuss even more in depth and specifically in our book, Raising Muscular Minds. It's on our website and it's also on Amazon.com with 50 plus reviews. It's called Raising Muscular Minds, Parenting the Next Generation. And if you've been a parent for longer than 5 minutes, you know that you need backup, you need support. And this book and this podcast is meant to give you that support. And so add it to your collection. I've said before, there's not always an exact path to getting our kids raised. A lot of times there's lots of good ways to parent our kids, and there's lots of good principles, and you have to find what's really going to be true for your family. And this book is really going to help you maybe nail down what's important to you and what you decide to really make a stand on, and what you can maybe live without. And so I would encourage you to check that out for more in-depth resources. But I hope that as our kids get back to school, as you start parenting them through some tough things in the coming months, that maybe this podcast can get you off on the right foot, and that you can take a look at that. And hopefully it's a blessing to you and your family. And we appreciate you coming to Muscular Minds. And we will catch you on our video podcast next time. Feel free to subscribe on any of our social media websites, or go to our website for more information and share with a friend. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining Muscular Minds today, where strength isn't measured by how much you lift, but who you lift up. And that starts with you.